Salutations, my friends. I'm TheMightyMander, and I have lots of thoughts on Final Fantasy XVI. I've been playing this demo. I've been playing it basically non-stop since it came out, and I am in love with this game. I cannot wait to play the full version. I've played the demo like maybe 3 times, which it's a pretty chunky demo, so that is right now I'm just excited, and I want to just share that because this is the most extensive, content complete demo that I think I've ever played, and I think that based on what I'm seeing here, Final Fantasy XVI has the potential to be one of the best action games of the year, if not the best, and one of the best action games of the last few years. I'm just very, very impressed with the demo, and I want to go over a few things that impressed me in particular. So, starting with the content itself, like I said, this is an extensive demo because the chapter that it gives you story-wise is basically the beginning of the game, and your progress will carry over to the full game when that comes out. And basically, it's all set up. Like, it's all setting up, laying the groundwork for the story, all these different factions, because basically, the amount of world building that this game has to do just in that first chapter is just immense. It is an insurmountable task, and I think the game does a really, really good job with it, particularly because it doesn't over-explain its lore, but it also doesn't hide its lore. Like, it writes the lore into the dialogue for specifically what applies to this situation, and it doesn't over-explain it, because if you have questions as a player, during most cutscenes and non-combative story sequences, you can just hit the touchpad on the PlayStation controller, and it'll bring up a series of lore for relevant things that are on screen, be that characters, factions, locations, events. All that stuff is basically just accessible at your fingertips, and it's pretty fascinating to read, like to see like, oh, this character, like this is the relationship between this character and this character. This is the relationship between this party member and the little kid Joshua. That's like they have a little bit of a connection there, and I think that's interesting. It adds a little bit more flavor to the story. And the story is definitely a very self-serious tone. Like, it is going for a very serious kind of Game of Thrones-esque tone, but I think so far it's nailing it pretty well. It's not afraid to lean into that tone and go dark and go traumatizing. I hope there is a little bit of levity. We'll see if, you know, they lean too hard into the seriousness and there's no levity at all, which I'm really hoping isn't the case. Yeah, the characters in the demo are really strong. I think Clive is a great protagonist. Everybody's kind of clowning on him for his name, and yeah, it's a bit generic, but I think that's kind of the point. And I also think that the guy's voice, like the voice acting for Clive is really, really good. And Clive is just an absolute apocalyptic badass. Like, he fights like an absolute fucking demon. And I don't care. I don't care what his name is, because he's awesome. Like, it legit does not matter. So that's kind of where I'm at. Like, the way I'm feeling after what I've seen Clive do in the game, I don't give a shit what his name is. He's awesome. The side characters that I've met so far, like there's a section, the combat section that's a bit later in the game after you beat the prologue, features Sidolphus, voiced by Ralph Ineson, who's incredible. He's just got that really deep, booming, identifiable voice. I'm not sure who the voice actress is for Benedicta, but I thought she was really going for it as well. And to talk about this godlike combat system for a second, like, that is really what I think is going to blow this game open. And like because I've played, like I said, I've played a lot of this demo, and I feel like I've only scratched the surface of what's possible with this combat system. It feels like a slightly simpler control setup for like a Devil May Cry-esque type of game. The executions of more complex moves seem a bit simpler than in something like Devil May Cry. You're not doing forward back or back forward on the stick and then to command. It's mostly like you have your basic commands, and those are altered slightly by which iconic ability you're using, which summon ability you're using, whether you have the Titan ones or the Ifrit ones or the Phoenix ones or whatever the fuck they are. So those alter your basic abilities slightly, but they have specific abilities that really function as like the variety in the combat. Like, they're suitable for different situations. In particular, I really love the Titan wind-up punch. It's just a gigantic, big, huge multi-hitting punch that does insane damage, and is one of those moves that it's like, oh, when you hit that at the right time, like when your enemy is staggered, to maximize the damage, it's like, it just feels so satisfying. I really think that, and that's accentuated by a lot of things. The visuals, the effects, you know, the voice acting. Like, when you hit that wind-up punch, you just get a real guttural, like, from Clive. And it's just incredible. I find the combat incredibly satisfying in this game. It just takes the spectacle of something like a Devil May Cry and just cranks it, because there's just so much money on screen. Like, there's just so much budget on screen at any time, and it's something about it feels more expensive than most AAA games. And it's really awesome to see that amount of work put on screen. Like the cutscene at the beginning of the game when you are introduced to the concept of a dominant, and you see Titan for the first time, and he's the size of a skyscraper, and he's just stepping on his own dudes on the battlefield, and he's facing off against Shiva, who's throwing icicles at him, and he's punching the icicles out of the air. It just looks incredible. And I'm like, this is the beginning. Like, this is the very beginning. I know you gotta go crazy for the beginning, but I've seen some of the trailers. I don't remember specifics, and I don't want to go back and watch them now that I'm actually familiar with the context of the game, because I'm like, I just want to see this for the first time when I'm actually playing the game. I want to see, I'm like, what are these other icon battles gonna look like? What is it going to look like when I'm actually playing this? What is it going to look like when I'm fighting Titan? Like, I'm just seeing him kind of running around in the background. What is it going to look like when I have to fight this guy? So that's what I'm really looking forward to. And in terms of action spectacle, FF16 has the chance to be almost unrivaled in terms of mainstream AAA action games. Being more action-oriented, it does deviate a bit more from the classic kind of Final Fantasy turn-based systems of even something like Final Fantasy VII Remake, where you kind of build up your ATB until you have, like, a turn, and you can use the more specialized abilities like it is like a turn in a turn-based strategy game. Final Fantasy XVI basically ditches that approach altogether in favor of a direct input action combat system. But it does retain certain aspects of the Final Fantasy battle system, like in particular the stagger system. It stood out to me in 7 Remake that I'm like, oh, okay, this is the combat system of this game, where it's like you build up the stagger, and then once they're staggered, that's when you do big damage. And putting that type of stagger system into an action game like Devil May Cry or God of War, it leads to a very interesting result, because I find myself, like, when my first time playing through the combat system, I was kind of just spamming, right? I was spamming the different abilities, cycling through them, waiting for them to recharge. I wasn't really taking advantage of specific situations where it would be advantageous for me to use these abilities. So I'd use the weaker abilities, and then I would save like the big Titan wind-up punch for the end, because the multiplier increases as the stagger meter goes back up. So you get this, if you really save your high damaging abilities for specific moments, you can really maximize the damage that you're outputting, and it's very satisfying. And all that just mixes together like this crazy combat system where you're making decisions like at every moment, and you're dodging attacks, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, phase ender. And the battle theme keeps going. The special boss theme, like I'll use Benedicta's boss fight as an example in the later portion of the demo. In the middle of the phases, like her special version of the battle theme just keeps going. And she's activating more powers, and she's flying up into the air, and she lifts up a chunk of rubble over here, and she lifts up a chunk of rubble over here, smashes them together, and she's just chucking a building at you. And I'm like, God, this fight is still going. It's just so much. It's overwhelming. It's overwhelming how impressive each encounter is. It's just that very specific feeling that you get when you're like, I can't believe that I'm still looking at this. It's a lot of fun, and I can't wait to play more, man. I'm just so floored by this demo. I think if this game will truly be the showpiece for the PS5, FF16 is it, man. It's really like, if you were waiting for the game and you're still interested in picking up a PS5, it's like, this is it. And if you have a PS5 and you've got some, and you're interested in trying something a bit new, just, yeah, download the demo, give it a shot, watch about an episode and a half of Game of Thrones, do some tutorial fighting, and then, you know, I think it's a very, very impressive game, and I cannot wait to play more. Anyways, that's all I got for today. Hopefully we'll do more stuff like this in the future. This kind of, this summer Game Fest season has really, really been exciting for me. So, yeah, lots of good games coming out. Lots of stuff to look forward to. until next time, remember to, you know, just subscribe to the channel if you want to. I mean, that'd be cool. Leave a like if you want to. That would also be cool. And maybe I'll see you soon. And stay safe. I love you all. Peace out.